Our electric grid, it's one of the most incredible machines ever built, a silent partner that powers pretty much everything in our lives. But that silent partner is really starting to feel the pressure. We're asking it to do all sorts of new things it was never designed for. And honestly, the stakes could not be higher. Okay, let's get into it.
It sounds like a simple question, right? But it gets right to the heart of this massive new challenge. Just picture it. It's 5 p.m. on a freezing winter day. Everybody gets home from work, plugs in their car, flips on the lights, and cranks up the heat. It's basically a traffic jam, but for electricity. And just like a real traffic jam, if we don't figure out how to manage it, the whole system could just grind to a halt.
So here's the deal. We can't just keep building more and more power plants to handle all this new demand. I mean, for one, it's incredibly expensive, it takes forever, and it's not always the best for the environment. But the good news is, there's a much, much smarter way to go about this. It's a plan with a few different layers that isn't just about making more power, but about using the power we already have way more intelligently.
Okay, so to really get where we're going, we first have to understand where we've been. For decades, the name of the game for the people running the grid was all about prediction, specifically trying to predict that daily rush hour for energy.
So this energy rush hour has a technical name: peak demand. Now, why is this so important? Well, to meet that short spike in demand, utilities often have to fire up these things called peaker plants. You can think of them as the backup generators for the whole grid. They're often older, less efficient, and way more expensive to run, and they just sit there waiting for that one moment. So managing this peak isn't just about keeping the lights on, it's about saving money and cutting down on emissions too.
And for a really long time, predicting that peak was, well, pretty predictable. The grid operators could just look at a few main things: the weather forecast, how fast the population was growing, and just the normal rhythm of our lives. Factories starting up in the morning, everyone getting home in the evening. It was a formula that worked. But that formula is totally breaking down. All right, let's jump to today and see how things are changing. We are walking into a totally new era, and the things that are driving our energy demand are getting so much more powerful and a whole lot less predictable. The old rules just don't apply anymore.
This slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? We're shifting from a world of kind of gentle slopes, like steady population growth, to a world of these sudden, steep cliffs. We're not just talking about hot and cold days anymore, we're talking about really extreme weather events. And on top of that, we're adding two huge new sources of demand: millions and millions of electric vehicles and the massive switch over to electric heat pumps. And this really puts the scale of this whole thing into perspective. Just by switching homes in the UK from gas heat to electric heat pumps, studies estimate that peak demand could jump by a jaw-dropping 30%. That is a massive new load that our grid today just was not built to handle, especially during a big cold snap. And then you've got the electric vehicles, which add a whole other layer of complexity. As this quote points out, it's not just about how much power they need, it's all about when they need it. Can you imagine an entire neighborhood plugging in their cars at the exact same time after work? Studies showed this could literally overload the local transformers, which can lead to all sorts of problems or even outages. So just trying to predict this new demand isn't going to cut it. We have to start actively shaping it. So if we can't just sit back and predict the future anymore, what do we do? Well, the answer is to start managing it. And this is where our homes and our grid start to work together in a much, much smarter way. The key idea here is something called demand-side management, or DSM. I know it's a bit of a fancy term, but it's for a really simple idea. Instead of building a gigantic, expensive power plant just to handle a 30-minute peak, what if we could just gently nudge some of that electricity use to a different time of day? It's all about working smarter, not harder, and basically flattening the curve of our energy use. This is a perfect example of DSM in action. Let's just walk through it. Take a look at that middle graph. That's the price of electricity. See how it spikes in the afternoon? Okay, now look at the top graph. The smart thermostat sees that price spike happening and automatically adjusts the temperature down by maybe just a degree or two. And what happens? The heater uses less power, which you can see in that bottom graph. You'd barely even notice the change in your house. But when millions of homes do this all at once, it makes a huge difference for the grid. So how does this all work in the real world? It's kind of like a simple four-step dance. First, the grid sends out a signal that demand is super high or prices are going up. Second, your smart devices, like your thermostat or EV charger, get that message.
Third, they intelligently adjust what they're doing, so maybe your car pauses charging for an hour, or your water heater decides to wait until 2 a.m. to warm up. And the final result? That big peak gets shaved down, making the grid more stable and more efficient for everybody. And this whole DSM thing isn't just a one-trick pony. It has a few different goals. Peak clipping is what we've been talking about, just lopping the top off that demand spike. Valley filling is the total opposite. It's about encouraging people to use energy when there's a ton of cheap renewable power available, like on a really windy night. And load shifting is about moving a whole chunk of energy use, like charging up all the electric cars in a city from 6 p.m. to, say, midnight instead. So, demand-side management is an amazing tool for handling things in the moment. But to really truly build a grid that's ready for the future, we have to move beyond just reacting and start proactively planning. This isn't just about managing the demand we already have. It's about designing the communities we actually want to live in. And that planning, it's happening on a surprisingly local level. This is where something called local area energy plans, or LAEPs, come into the picture. The best way to think about an LAEP is as the master blueprint for your community's entire energy future. And it's not just about electricity. It's a huge, holistic plan that looks at everything from housing and transportation to heating and local renewable energy, all designed to hit those net zero goals. And this is a really important point to remember. This transition to a clean energy future, it isn't just some big national goal handed down from on high. It's actually a grassroots effort. It's like a mosaic of thousands of these local plans being built city by city, town by town, with each one totally customized to the unique needs of that community. And this slide shows why this has to be a team sport. An effective LAEP requires a real partnership. The local government comes to the table with its knowledge of housing plans and transportation goals. And the network operators, they bring the hard data on what the grid can and cannot handle right now. When those two work together, they can create a plan that is both really ambitious and actually achievable. And these plans get super specific. We're talking about mapping out exactly where new EV chargers need to go, figuring out which neighborhoods are the best candidates for heat pumps, and identifying where a new community solar farm could be built. And maybe most importantly, they identify which parts of the electrical network need to be beefed up before they become a bottleneck. It's all about getting way ahead of the curve.
Okay, so let's bring all this together. We've been on a bit of a journey here, right? From a pretty simple past to a much more complex future. And our whole approach to managing our power grid has had to evolve right along with it. This timeline just sums it all up perfectly. We started out in an era of simple prediction. Right now, we're in this new era of active, real-time management. But where we're headed, that's the most exciting part. A future of proactive, holistic system planning, where we actually design our energy systems from the ground up to be clean, efficient, and resilient. And this idea here, it really captures the fundamental shift in how we think about this. For 100 years, we've basically been passengers, right? We used electricity whenever we wanted and just expected the system to react. Now, we are becoming the architects, thoughtfully designing a system that works for us, for our communities, and for the planet. And this isn't some far-off abstract idea. These plans, these blueprints, they're being developed in communities as we speak. Which really brings us to the final question. If our energy future is being designed literally neighborhood by neighborhood, what's the blueprint going to look like where you live? And what role will you play in helping to build it?